The Last House on the Left is the debut feature film from director and writer, in this case, Wes Craven. It is also produced by Friday the 13th creator Sean S. Cunningham, and yeah, it caused a bit of a stink when it first came out. It was declared, you know, one of these video nasties. It was banned in many quarters. So it clearly comes with it a reputation, and it's a film that for many years Wes Craven tried to escape, and it kind of dictated the rest of his career. He kind of got stuck in the horror genre as a result of it. But yeah, the question is it any good? Is it worth checking out? Is it worth the hype? Two girls, these two women, they go out for a night on the town, and they come across this gang. They accidentally fall in with this gang. They kind of this one of the gang members leads them into their apartment, and everything from that point on goes downhill. They're basically tortured, raped, and then ultimately murdered. Unfortunately for the killers, they kill these women right next to the house of where one of them lives. When the parents catch on, when they kind of go to the parents' house to hide out somewhere or whatever and pose as businessmen, the parents catch on, realise what's gone on, who they are, and turn the tables. That's not a spoiler. That's basically, if you look the film up on Letterboxd, that's literally the plot. The whole enjoyment factor, I shudder to use that term with a film of such abhorrent kind of characters and story and whatnot. Ultimately, this is a film about violence and our perception of violence, our view of it. It's designed to make us root for the parents. It's designed to make us want them to do heinous things to these people. It's designed to make us implicit in the final acts of violence. The only problem is that whereas someone like Tarantino, who did the same thing with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, did it to absolute perfection, to the point where once the tables were turned, once the opposite happened, and the would-be killers in that film, the Manson family, were kind of offed, I actually cheered and laughed. Something you should never do at someone being brutally killed is laugh. And Tarantino has such a skill that that's what he made me do with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The same cannot be said here for, The Last House on the Left. It's just, I'm not saying Wes Craven isn't a skilled director, or that he isn't a skilled writer. I think clearly there is something here. There is something within the concept. I think that idea, that notion of violence begetting violence, and at a certain level you can kind of support it. Turning that mirror around on society and saying, look, you don't like this stuff, and yet you would quite happily support this. In many ways, it kind of, it's a commentary on the death penalty, because that's essentially what we do. We take people who've done heinous acts and then we kill them, and we feel justified. We feel vindicated in doing so. So the film has a lot to say in that regard, but I feel like the second half of it is really bungled. I think the first half is really well done. As much as a film about rape and violence and murder can be well done, I feel like Craven gets the right emotional response. He elicits the correct emotional response from me as an audience member. When I'm watching these guys, this gang, I'm horrified by them. Yeah, I'm also charmed at the same time in some respects. I can understand how this group of people might charm their way into people's graces. before doing horrible things to them. Very much the way that genuine real life serial killers might do such a thing. You know, I feel that these people are a genuinely dangerous bunch of people. So I think all of that stuff is really well directed. The way they're set up, what they do to these women, without being, by today's standards, gratuitously violent. I know it probably sounds like complete opposite based on what I've said so far, but obviously the context of when this came out. By 70s standards, by 72, there's some stuff on here that I feel like is relatively tame by today's standards. You know, you look at stuff like Saw, Hostel, this doesn't really feel like it's gone that far, to be honest, once you've seen those two, which I'm not so sure that's a good thing. But even so, I feel like that first half is really well handled. It shows us the violence, it shows us the effects of violence, it makes us feel what it's like to be in the midst of violence. You know, it makes your skin crawl in that respect. It makes you root for these women to escape, and it makes you feel sad and betrayed when they don't. So all that stuff is really good. The problem is the payoff, and the payoff is the parents finding out. Now that's really the moment that the film should be having fun. That is really the moment that it should embrace wholeheartedly its concept, which is this idea of these parents getting one over on them and us really rooting for them. And the problem is I don't, and it doesn't, and I feel like it's almost laughable the way they go about their revenge. You know, the very idea that the mother would in any way try to seduce one of these guys, admittedly, in order to wreak revenge on him, you know, terrible revenge. I still don't buy it. The emotional turmoil that she would be going through at that point, I don't see it happening at all. There's no way she could be that calculated about it. As a parent myself, you know, like I mean, I would hope that, like, even given some of the stuff that goes on in this, I would hope that I could go to the police. Probably not. That probably wouldn't happen. If I was in the situation these parents were in, I would probably go to the kitchen and get a knife, which, you know, as a man of faith, is something that I shouldn't really condone, but I cannot say that I wouldn't feel that way. So yeah, the fact that this woman can be so calculated after just seeing her daughter, you know, after finding her daughter, go back and then go, yeah, I'm going to lure this guy out into the woods and flirt with him and pretend that I'm going to have sex. No, I'm sorry. You'd be so enraged, so desperate to kill this guy that I just think you wouldn't think straight. It's just, the whole thing just feels lame, to be honest. It feels really misdirected. And I can only blame Craven for that, because he wrote it and directed it. So it's a shame, because I think the first half, as I say, is really effective. And then you get the husband as well, so he's tackling one of the guys, and that just turns a bit, it turns into this lame ass fight in which he actually doesn't come off as that threatening, and everything just, it fizzles out, really. It should be the big climatic revenge sequence in which these two parents just go to town on this gang. Again, not something I would endorse, but I think for the statement that the film is trying to make, trying to get you to essentially root for a killing. I think they should have gone to town on it, and they didn't. It fizzles out. It's a bit lame. The characters do things they wouldn't really do, or I can't buy it. I just think it's really badly handled. And that's that. Does it deserve its reputation? I mean, I guess so. Again, it's that whole context, time it came out. I can imagine this being super shocking at the time it came out. A little bit tamer by... I mean, there's still shocking stuff in there, don't get me wrong. If you're not a horror fan, I certainly wouldn't... You know, if you're new to horror, I wouldn't necessarily say, yes, this is your go-to film, start with this one. But I think if you are a horror fan, you've seen a lot of horror films, but you've just not got around to this one. I think when you do get around to this one, you might be a bit like, oh, all right, don't know what all the fuss was about. But yeah, that was my problem with the film. I won't want to watch it again. It is a bit of a video nasty. I just think that the one thing that it had going for it, that it could have really nailed, didn't quite pull it off. I have no urge to watch it again. So I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. Interesting ideas, some good performances, particularly by the gang members and the setup and all that, but bungled second half. 2.5 out of 5 from me. But what about you? Have you seen Wes Craven's debut film, Last House on the Left, a film title that actually doesn't make any sense within the context of the film, but just sounds mysterious? And what do you think of the remake, if you've seen the remake? Is that one worth checking out? Leave your thoughts down below. Let me know what they are. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, crack it.